name is David Sousa Rodrigues. I'm from Portugal, from the Design and Art School in Caldas da Rainha. I'm a professor of complex systems and programming. And it's really a pleasure to be here after all the troubles and issues that we had in the last year, even in Turkey and everything. So it's very interesting to be here in the companion of Samira Buketa, that is also the co-chair of this session. Nice to meet you. And I think it's going to be a very interesting session. It's going to be a very small session compared to the others that are running, but I think there are a couple of very, very interesting works that we will present today and see today. And I hope that in the end we can discuss a little bit. We have two sessions, two breaks for discussion. So I think first we'll see the presentations of our colleagues and some of our own, and we'll have an opportunity to have a debate and share ideas and share our knowledge about urban environments and sustainability, and how we can focus on the cities of the present and the cities that we want to build for the future. And so this is going to be a very interesting session. First of all, I'd like to ask also Dr. Samira Buketa to present herself, to introduce herself, and then we can proceed for the presentations of the several authors that we have here.
Thank you, Mr. David. I'm Samira Buketa, a teacher and a researcher at the University of Jiger in Algeria. So it is a pleasure to meet you today and to present and to meet the others and the researcher here in this conference. So I have the links of the communication. If I can share the links.
Mm-hmm. That will be excellent. You're going to.
I can't share links.
Yes, either through the chat, or if you want to share your screen, and then either way we can present the papers. And while
I can't share my link. I think.
Doctor, do you have the links to share the presentation?
No, I don't have the links.
We have. I will share the presentation.
Okay, so I'll introduce the first talk of this afternoon, and this talk is entitled "Towards an Economic Efficiency of the Space of the Public Place: The Case of the Public Places of the City of Biskra in Algeria," by Dr. Anafi Abdelkakim. And I'm sorry for pronunciation of the names because it's always very difficult for me. Dr. Boutania Said and Dr. Jamel Al-Kama. I don't know who's going to do the presentation, but this is the first paper that we are going to. And if the organizers can share the screen, I will be very thankful.
Thermal complex Sidi Yahya in Biskra, Algeria. The aqua park complex Biskra, Algeria. The swimming pool of the Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria, and the Hammam Salhin thermal complex in Biskra in Algeria. For projects and adequate adaptations to public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria to attract users and make the land of these places profitable, then achieve economic efficiency. Problematic. The public place is not a simple public space reserved for traffic, the meeting of the city dwellers, but is in the city or in the city to create a set of psychological reactions and encourage urbanity among city dwellers while improving the quality of urban living environment. Disablement of the use, it discourages the authorities and owners of the cities from considering new public places during the urban design, either for a new city or for the extension of the city. Moreover, it is limited to the planning of shopping centers, malls, swimming pools, parks, etc., so as not to waste their land. Therefore, the problem is to research and see the various forms of the possible optimizations relating to attractive activities to account for the land reserved for public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria. Material and methodology. The approach used in this research began with the field survey and the use of the questionnaire as technical research, morphological, spatial, environmental, urban analysis, etc. Public spaces in the city of Biskra in Algeria seek for an activity that is attractive to users and at the same time financially profitable for the managers for public places. Users of the public places, the population frequenting a public place is make up for all users at a given time. Thus, it includes men,
with the presentation. I'll ask the conference member to see if there was a problem with the video.
vehicles, and domestic animals. The city of Biskra in Algeria, the city of Biskra is the capital of the wilaya. It is classified by the Algerian state case of the public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria. Public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria. Observing the city contains only a limit. At the first glance, we notice that the public space, ways, race avenues, etc., organizes the city. The purpose of this communication is to seek the strong points and the preferred elements among the users of the public areas. Thermocomplex Sidi Yahya in Biskra, Algeria, the Aqua Park Complex, Biskra, Algeria, the swimming pool of the Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria, and the Hammam Salihin Thermal Complex in Biskra in Algeria, for projects and adequate adaptations to public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria to attract users and make the land of these places profitable, then achieve economic efficiency. Problematic. The public place is not a simple public space reserved for traffic, the meeting of the city dwellers, but is in the city or in the city to create a set of psychological reactions and encourage urbanity among city dwellers while improving the quality of urban living environment. Disablement of the use, it discourages the authorities and owners of the cities from considering new public places during the urban design, either for a new city or for the extension of the city. Moreover, it is limited to the planning of shopping centers, malls, swimming pools, parks, etc., so as not to waste their land. Therefore, the problem is to research and see the various forms of the possible optimizations relating to attractive activities to account for the land reserved for public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria. Material and methodology. The approach used in this research began with the field survey and the use of the questionnaire as technical research, morphological, spatial, environmental, urban analysis, etc. Public spaces in the city of Biskra in Algeria seek for an activity that is attractive to users and at the same time financially profitable for the managers for public places. Users of the public places, the population frequenting a public place is make up for all users at a given time. Thus, it includes men, women, children, and all social classes without segregation or elimination, poor, rich, unemployed, beggar, etc. The animation of public place. Animation is the opposite of calmness, and rest. It is the character of what is animated, lively and full of life for Goethe. It is the intensity of the use of the free public space by individuals, vehicles, and domestic animals. The city of Biskra in Algeria, the city of Biskra is the capital of the wilaya. It is classified by the Algerian state as the southern wilaya. Places studied. Public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria. The city of Biskra contains only a limited number of public places, of course, which carries the notion of the public place, while eliminating free spaces and clearances. The public places affected by the study are plus حي الاستقبال بسكرة in Algeria, plus ضلعة بسكرة in Algeria, plus الحرية بسكرة in Algeria, plus بن بديس بسكرة in Algeria, and finally plus زوكة بسكرة in Algeria.
And I think that we finished the first talk, if I'm not mistaken, because on the screen we are seeing the program for
the user between public space and leisure equipment. People seek out their interests and needs in public spaces and leisure equipment, what we see is the public place such as malls, shopping centers, supermarkets, tea rooms, parks, etc. provide people with opportunities that put public spaces second to consistently frequent spaces. It is a complex tourism thermal plus thermal clinic plus water park plus thermal and thermal treatment center. In addition, the main thing in all this is that this complex was able to attract people, children, women through its amusement park for children. It is a complex tourism thermal clinic, water park, thermal and a thermal treatment center. In addition, the main thing in all this is that this complex was able to attract people, children, women through its amusement park for children. Opening of the Aqua Palm Complex, Biskra in Algeria. The Aqua Park, an amusement park, a shopping center, accommodation structure, sports and clinical complex, a tourism institute, and a cinema city. Today, the Aqua Palm is finalized and already welcomes the first swimmers. What attracts more people, men, children, and women is that the Aqua Park has 32 slides, a wasteful temples including 3 for children and pleasure river for 641 meters.
We are not just
Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria. This hotel is enumerated. What prompted us to quote it in our article is that the owner of this hotel has equipped the hotel swimming pool with 2 slides, which attracts children for the city of Biskra in Algeria with their parents in the summer period, day and night. Thermal complex Hammam Salhain in Biskra in Algeria. The Hammam Salhain thermal complex is located west of the city of Biskra in Algeria on the main road to Batna. So also has 72 air-conditioned bungalows with all amenities, hotel, restaurant, and cinema. The management of this complex has reserved a playground and attraction for children. The latter attracts people for all categories, especially children. We mean by efficiency achieving the desired results by making optimal use of material and immaterial resources while minimizing the negative impacts and usage. That means how to make public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria more financially profitable, how to make the public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria a financial source or source for the interest of the state of its owner. Analysis and study. First, strategy for the economic efficiency of the space of public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria. This strategy was touched upon in earlier research by the same author under the title Towards the High Intensity of the Use of the Public Place of the Area Cities, where we thought about activities with all its types. What increases and expands the economic efficiency of this place is the intensity of spectacular and original activities. In addition, it receives festivals all around the year and the convergence of a large number of routes and multi-purposes of its space, circulation, display, merchandise, games, etc. Economic efficiency of marketplace, souk, Ghardaya. It is the only large public place in the city. This last aspect perhaps corresponds to the second name of the souk, Rahba, which is in Arabic designates a vast place, and this was how a large place was called in the first Muslim cities. It is the center of the economic life and commercial activity. It is a space for men that work there, meet people there, and it is a place entirely forbidden to women, surrounded by houses and shops. Second strategy for the economic efficiency of the space of the public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria. We conducted a study analysis on the public places animated all the time and making an acceptable intensity of use during the year to see the attractive surrounds of the latter and the projections in the breadth of the public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria in order to achieve economic efficiency. So the questionnaire, as the technical research is based on the question, what attracts people more to public places? Thermal complex Sidi Yahya in Biskra in Algeria, the Aqua Palm complex in Biskra in Algeria, the swimming pool of the Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria, and the Hammam Salhain thermal complex in Biskra in Algeria. A context for the questionnaire. Number 1, here the first related to the population of the public place thermal complex Sidi Yahya in Biskra, the aqua palm complex in Biskra in Algeria, the swimming pool of the Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria, and the Hammam Salhin thermal complex in Biskra in Algeria, to identify the rare elements that attract people and why. The question focuses on elements that attract people. Figure 18. Graphs relating to the questionnaire of the population of public places established by the author. Number 1, thermal complex Sidi Yahya Biskra in Algeria, the aqua palm complex Biskra in Algeria, and number 3, the swimming pool of the Hotel Barbary in Biskra in Algeria, and number 4, the Hammam Salhin thermal complex Biskra in Algeria. Question of graph 18. According to the results of the questionnaire, games attracts people from all categories of men, women, and boys for all the public places studied. The rate varies from 45.95% up to 68% compared to other activities. Conduct of the questionnaire 2, it relates to the population of the public places in the city of Biskra. The question focuses on elements that attract people. The services, benefits offered, 2 games, 3 provoking adventures. Discussion of the graph 19. According to the results of the questionnaire, the users of the places suggest in the first place challenge of the adventure and the games in the second position so that the public place meets their aspirations. Recommendations. Our objective of this communication was to achieve the economic efficiency of public places in the city of Biskra in Algeria. In this sense, we are not obliged to attract people, men, women, children, to these places, and permanently. In addition, users must operate the places, consume and pay for the services and benefits offered for the interest of either the places, the authorities, APC, or their owners. Proposals. The insertion to the introduction of term. Metallic or concrete has a great height, equipped with the telescope to allow users to have a panoramic view of the city of Biskra in Algeria. In addition, the ride will be a panoramic lift. These towers are symbols of power. In addition, they can become emblems of the city where they are located. Inserting slide program. The length of the largest water slide in the world is 1,111 meters, recently inaugurated in Malaysia. The attraction, which received a distinction from the Guinness Book of Records, belongs to the Space Amusement Park located on the island of Penang, Malaysia. Rocking boat. The rocking boat, always called pirate ship, it is pendulum type attraction, a sort of giant swing. Panoramic walkway. The panoramic footbridge can be designed as a landscape allowing circulation between the 3 parts of the public place of Dala in Biskra in Algeria, since this place consists of 3 parts. Conclusion. The choice of our subject was after a different reading of the city and its public spaces. The latter was never been just a space to be used on the daily basis. The city is a good that belongs to society. Therefore, we have to live in it as a large residence, a living space, and keep it for future generations. The proper use of the public space or places requires a detailed knowledge of all the elements that can improve the conditions of the use of the latter. So we thought of the new attractive elements and update them to users for a better use. After the study and analysis and field survey of the various public places, thermal complex Sidi Yahya in Biskra in Algeria, the aqua palm complex in Biskra in Algeria, the Hotel Barbary Biskra in Algeria, and swimming pool the element and the Hammam Salhin in Biskra in Algeria and thermal complex, recording a high rate of use. We arrived at the result that the public places of the city of Biskra in Algeria must have a new street furniture, which represented panoramic walkway, rock boating, the slide toboggan insertion, in addition the insertion or introduction of turns, to attract people to places for financial return. Subsequently, we come to the economic efficiency of the land of the places. This encourages the authorities to consider new public places with the aim of creating conviviality for the population of the city of Biskra in Algeria.
So this was the presentation, the first presentation. Although we had some glitches, I think the gist of it was understood for the majority of our participants. I'm sorry once again for this small inconvenience, but if we need to then get back to this presentation, probably we will be able to do it, or at least discuss it in a little bit better in the discussion section that we'll have at the after the first round of presentations. And so, not to be very late, I just suggest that we go forward and add a new and talk about the new presentation that is from Dr. Maha Abubakar Ibrahim and Dr. Mazen Mohamed Nassef. It is entitled Evolution of Roof Systems in Ancient Coptic Churches from the 14th to the 19th Centuries. And I'll ask our assistants that are organizing to do the presentation, and to be careful not to swap the screen, because it's, as you are sharing the entire screen, if you move to another screen, we'll not be able to see it. So let's see this presentation then.
Thank you for having me and my colleague Mazen Mohamed Nassef. Our research title is Evolution of Roof Systems in Ancient Coptic Churches from the 4th to 9th centuries. We are tracing the evolution of the structured roof systems in ancient Egyptian Coptic churches from the 4th to 9th centuries, standing on the causes and influences that produced the formation of such roof systems and the changes that led to their development. We need to have a broad overview of the design and construction of the roof structure systems used in the ancient Coptic churches. Our methodology is divided into 3 parts. The first part is to study the role of the roofing in the ancient Coptic churches, whether physical, environmental, and spiritual. Then we are going to trace the types of roof systems in this same period. Then we are going to analyze the floor plans of the churches between the 4th and 9th centuries to trace or to percept the roofing systems. Our research problem also is to because of the lack of the information about the Coptic history in general and the history of architecture, there is a very limited research related to the architecture or history of architecture for that period compared with other periods in Egypt. And our goal here is to clear the blurry picture of the history of architecture in that time. The role of roof system as an architectural element in the Coptic churches, it played three roles. The physical role is not just a shelter from the physical dangers. It is also a way or a mean to of concealment from the eyes of enemies, because practicing Christianity at the beginning was forbidden. And there's another evidence for that is the placement on the of the apse on the eastern side. It is equal to the elevation and not protruded as usual in Roman basilicas. Environmentally, studying the Coptic churches environmentally and the roof systems also illustrated the interaction between the ancient Coptic culture and the local environment in Egypt, and it illustrates their treatments to their environmental treatments in the architecture and roofing system that produced their own architecture character. Spiritually wise, the roof system reflected the Christian culture, where when they build one dome, it symbolizes the God. 3 domes symbolizes the Trinity. 4 domes five domes symbolize the Jesus Christ and the 4 angels, and so on. Every thing in the roof, even the openings and the number, represents a certain concept in the Christian culture. By tracing the evolution of roof systems in the 4th and 9th century, we have to overlook on their inherited knowledge, where Egyptians know the vaults and how to build vaults since ages before. We can see here the temple of Ramses II at Kurna, and here are the workers' village at Al-Amarna. They used wooden beams and covered it with mud mixture. Also, there is imposed culture from the Roman building culture. We see the first reconstruction of the St. Peter, where it is covered. It is a basilica plan and covered with timber gabled roof. Also, from the paintings on the domes of Bagawat that go back to this time, also we can notice that they know the gabled roof and the multi-domed or multi-vaulting roof systems. This is how we can trace, using their knowledge and the floor plans, how they evoluted their structure system of the roofs, where we can perceive that during the 4th century they only used the flat roof and the vaulted roof, where in this the 5th century they used more combined roofs between vaults and flat roofs, or vaulted roofs, or domed, like the Byzantine influence that time. Where in the 6th and 7th century, they didn't use the flat roof so much, but alternatively, they used the vaulted roofs, domed roof, or combination between the domes and vaults. During the 8th and 9th century, there is a cross-culture between the Islamic influences and the Christian influences occurred that time. So they tended to use the vaults and domes as well, and the combinations between domes and vaults were during the 7th and 6th centuries. The combined roof was between the flattened roof and the vaults. Here they using the vaults and domes, like the Church of Mar Boktor at Luxor. Also, the documented cross-section of Church St. Mary at Wadi Natrun, we can see the treatment of the vaults and domes in pointed form, and that is an Islamic influence. So, as long as we have no records providing the shape of the building's construction system, this paper put a set of perceptions for the kind and form of the coverage of the Coptic churches. And here we can trace how this evolution took its place. Also, this study emphasizes the idea of multiculturalism, how the form of the plan evolved a long time, and as well the construction techniques and the roof and the form of the roof system also evolved. Also, we found that the structured roof systems during the ancient Coptic periods was not just an architectural element that worked functionally, but it has its own dynamics with the local culture and political situation and the social situation as well. We were able also to illustrate in a tangible way the ancient or the ancient Egyptian Coptic identity through the overlap between the Christian culture and the local Egyptian character. Finally, we recommend to make more deep researches about the history of Coptic architecture and to reveal the ambiguity between the relationship of the Coptic architecture and the environmental aspects and sustainability aspects. We need to know more about the methodology of design and the semiotics, and there is many fields between the Coptic architecture, the history of Coptic architecture, and other fields that we can find the relationship between them. Also, to know more information about or to make a clear picture about that time, we need more researches and more excavations. We need to research to deepen the research about their products, their culture products, arts, potteries, icons, literature. This gives us some clues as an architects to know more and more about their architecture. Thank you for listening to us.
So we've seen this presentation, very interesting presentation that we'll then discuss a little bit later. And it's now time to move forward and do the presentation, to see the paper by Dr. Samira Buketa, entitled Simulation Study of Urban Ventilation of Residential Streets and Impact of Building Form Variation in Summer under Humid Climate. I think everything will be ready and we can see this presentation. Oh, something seems to be failing. I'll ask the conference organizer to share the screen because it's not being shared right now. The sharing stopped.
Hello. Yes, now I will share. There is a problem. I will share it
Okay.
now. 1 minute only.
If Dr. Samira Buketa has the link, she might be able to share it from her own computer, but I don't know.
Yes, I have the links.
So can you share it from your computer, and this way, probably it's best. I don't know if you have it ready.
I haven't the authorization to share.
Okay. Or you can send it to me and I'll try to share it, for example. So we don't have the sharing of the screen. Dr. Samira, do you have can you send me the YouTube link, for example? Then and I'll try to share it from here. In the chat, if you go down to
Chat, yeah.
Yeah, you just send it through the chat and I'll open it in my browser.
Yes.
And
1 minute,
oh, okay,
please.
so
1 minute, please.
Towards an economic efficiency of the space of the public place, case of the public places of the city of Biscay in Algeria. Introduction.
We
Observing the
are
city
seeing
through this
something that
select
is
image.
not.
At the first glance,
The analysis and discussion of the findings of investigation.
We are seeing the program, and I have to ask the organizers to, or either send me the link. Oh, I think I'm Samira.
I
Dr.
sent you. I
Samira sent
sent
me
you
the
the
link.
link.
I'll open it
And
and
I
I'll
will
share it from my
send.
computer.
Study of
Okay.
Yes, I will send you the others.
Okay. So I'm going to share from my screen. I can ask. Can I ask the host of this session to give me screen sharing permissions?
Guided by me, Dr. Buketa Semira, a teacher and a researcher at the University of Gigel's Architecture Department.
Doctor, the sharing is coming now. Do you see the sharing?
Yes, I'm true.
So,
Okay,
the
we are
presentation is
seeing
organized
the
about
presentation.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Content,
Okay.
research,
Now I
Okay.
share.
methodology,
Okay.
and case study are presented first. After that, the analysis and discussion of the findings of investigation and numerical simulation, and ended with conclusion. Wind is a very sensitive climatic parameter, enormously variable and difficult to figure. Its apprehension by the means of measurements and representation is difficult both in relation to time and space. In an urban environment, wind change in speed and direction according to the particularity of building environment. It represents fairly noticeable elements of the urban microclimate. It can be a source of freshness and ventilation in summer, or a source of nuisance in winter by causing states of discomfort to users in urban areas. Air movement are strongly disturbed by many obstacles of various shapes, especially irregular ones. The geometry influences the strength and nature of the flow. This is the case for buildings with L shapes and U shapes geometries. The description of the wind flow around these shapes and the pressure distribution is difficult to assess and estimate. In effect, research conducted on airflow in urban areas is numerous. These studies address the phenomenon of urban ventilation around built structures, grouped or isolated, and its interaction between other thermal phenomena at the scale of canyon streets or even at the scale of an urban fabric. This work suggests that the characteristic of wind flows in a street can be determined from the geometry of the street, in particular that of its prospect HW, where H is the height of the buildings, W is the spacing between buildings forming the streets. In this work, we will address the issue that highlights the interactions between the shape of buildings, the space between buildings, and urban ventilation. Several concerns appear linked to this issue, namely which urban profiles to choose and which form of building to adopt. This research followed the methodology according to 4 steps. 1. Choice of case study, in which we will present climate analysis of the city of Gigel and choice of case study. 2. Investigation and measurements. 3. Numerical simulation. And 4. Evaluation of result. The study was carried out at the level of the city of Gigel in Algeria, characterized by a Mediterranean climate. According to the climate analysis, February is the windiest month in winter. July is the hottest month in summer. To choose the case study, we adopt the typomorphological approach as a tool for analyzing all the collective housing buildings existing at the level of the urban perimeter of the city of Gigel, based on description, comparison, and analysis. and also locate, classify, and choose case study. The case study situated 800 meters from the sea and at a high altitude of 110 meters. It is distinguished by its several level high and several geometric features, including juxtaposition, the assembly of two or more blocks in a bar, a linear design, and L and U-shaped assembly. So four shapes has been chosen: L-shaped and U-shaped, characterized by wide, medium, and narrow ratios. Regarding the result of the measurements, the evaluation of the air temperature shows that the maximum temperature measured on site was 36 degrees, recorded in the profile of form U3. At the same time, delta T equal to 4 degrees, followed by the profiles of forms U4, L3, and L2, whose values are successively 35.3, 35, 34.7, and 34.2 degrees. Also, it is necessary to point out that the site adjacent to the sea, the humidity rate becomes considerable because the highest rate is of a value of 46%, noticed at the level of the profile of the L3 form. Regarding the wind, the graph shows that there are well-ventilated areas and others poorly ventilated. Indeed, this variation in behavior may be due to the factor of the geometry carried by each outdoor space in combination with the incidence of the wind. Profiles of shapes L2 and U4 have good ventilation. The reduced spacing between buildings facing the wind direction sucked in the wind. At the level of profiles U1, U3, and L3, where there are very large gaps between buildings, wind speeds are moderate to reduced. Due to the location of these profiles in the shade, less exposed regions have been created. 3 steps of the numerical simulation were carried out by the ENVIMAT program. The first step entails drawing of case studies, buildings, and vegetation. Secondly, introduction of meteorological data of Gigel city and treatment results by Leonardo. The numerical simulation was carried out on the initial profiles in order to qualify the behavior of the wind in the external space resulting from these geometries. The simulation covers the same period chosen for the investigation. The chosen geometries have been carefully drawn according to a suitable scale of the tree spacing of the grid X, Y, and Z, and of the order of 2 meters for reasons of geometric precision. The dimensions and the heights of the buildings, as well as the vegetation, have been reported in order to be able to reproduce the reality on the ground. The parameter obtained is the wind speed. This parameter will be deduced by ENVIMAT and read by Leonardo. Profiles of U1, U3, and L3 shapes have a good level of air renewal. The flow is deviated above the roofs due to the formation of a wake which accentuates the velocities at the corners. According to the pressure distribution, the flow is slightly agitated with turbulence. The facades receive low pressures, inducing low potentials for ventilation. Profiles of L2 and U4 shapes, amplification of wind speed allowing better distribution of positive and negative pressures by promoting outdoor ventilation. The nature of the flow in gaps is determined mainly by the combination of corner currents and the opening angle of the passage. The comparison indicates that the airspeed measured at points U1, U3, L2, and U4 exhibits much turbulence than the simulated one. What is remarkable is the fact of having an overventilation produced at the L2 and U4 points almost all day. This generated a cooling felt since the speeds greatly exceed the threshold of discomfort. To wrap up, in this work, we took on a challenge that highlights the interplay between geometric elements of the urban environment and the urban ventilation. Numerous inferences can be taken from the methodology and strategy used in this study. The potential for outdoor ventilation is linked to the geometry of buildings. Elongated shapes, L-shape, for example, favor the channel of air when they are oriented in the direction of the wind. However, a fabric with numerous intersections causes at its street intersections areas of turbulence for all wind directions. Also, patio geometries are less favorable to ventilation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting and gave us lots of ideas to think about later in the discussion session. Next, we'll see a presentation by my co-author, Dr. Architect Mafalda Teixeira Sampaio, and by me. It's entitled The Walkability of Alvalade Neighborhood for Young People, an Agent-Based Model of Daily Commutes to School. This is while we wait for the presentation to be shown, I can just briefly say that this was a work where we are in the starting off. So this is the first public presentation of a project about mobility patterns in a early 20th century neighborhood. And if the session host could share the presentation, the video from YouTube, otherwise
Okay.
I can try from my side, but
okay, doctor, I want to ask you if you want, I will share or you can share it.
I cannot, I'm not authorized to share because it says that I'm disabled. So to screen sharing.
Okay, I will share it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Sousa Rodrigues. Today, I am here to present a research paper that investigates the walkability of the Alvalade neighborhood in Lisbon, Portugal, particularly focusing on the mobility patterns of children and teenagers as they navigate their daily routines of going to school. The paper aims to understand the extent to which walkability is incorporated into urban design and to identify which urban fabric characteristics favor walkability the most. The paper argues that walkability promotes sustainability and inclusivity, making it a safe and accessible place that guarantees quality of life. The location for this case study is in Alvalade, a zone in Lisbon, Portugal. This neighborhood was planned by the architect Faria da Costa. Although peripheric at the time, it is today an integral part of the city of Lisbon and one of its noblest areas. Alvalade arises during the consolidation regime of the Estado Novo and under the expansion policy of the city by Duarte Pacheco. Duarte Pacheco had an entrepreneurial attitude. He was responsible for the vast program of expropriation of land that allowed the urbanization of the neighborhood of Alvalade through the municipalization of the land since 1945. The Alvalade plan is more or less 230 hectares, of which 218 result from the expropriation actions. Of the total space, 33 hectares were allocated to free spaces. The site of Alvalade, located on the outskirts of the city, was part of a campaign of expropriations of rural soils, and it was an ideal place to experiment and practice the principles of the modern movement. From the beginning, the site of Alvalade was considered a privileged territory for urban expansion due to its rural characteristics and vast expanse of land, which allowed to draw wide and more easily negotiable routes. Although most of the land was intended for agricultural use, as it is evident in this aerial photograph of Campo Pequeno in 1943, there were some isolated buildings that stood out, such as Quinta dos Lagares, Del Rey, and Coruchelos Palace, which still exists today. The Alvalade neighborhood was built in the mid-20th century, from 1945 to 1970, as a low-cost housing for workers, but it is currently inhabited by the middle and upper classes. The neighborhood was structured around 8 cells, each cell considering the maximum limit of 500 meters away from the housing to the school located in its center. Each cell has a different urban morphology, with some being more permeable than others. And in Alvalade, a synthesis of different influences of the traditional city and of the modern movement was carried out. This neighborhood functioned as an experimental laboratory of housing solutions. The cells are basically neighborhood units. This is a concept created by the American sociologist and urbanist Clarence Arthur Perry in the 1930s, and the cells are structured from a central element, radiating from this central element that is the school. According to Perry's principle, the perimeter of the neighborhood unit is obtained by a circumference with a radius of 500 meters, the maximum distance a child would walk to school. And the urban principle he proposed provided for the coexistence of housing of various social categories, supported by equipment, schools, markets, etc. So during the preparatory work of the master plan of 1948, the layout of the main communication routes was defined, the boundaries of the land taking into account the new buildings, private initiative was proposed, and the Lisbon master plan of 1948 was a plan that pointed to this zoning, but with detailed plans for several different areas, including Alvalade. And the general intervention in Alvalade constituted, in addition to the aspects we have been listing, a laboratory for experimentation with proposals and principles characteristics of the modern movement, among which we highlight the development of the housing unit, the introduction of neighborhood cells, and the strict separation of automobile and pedestrian traffic, and within the former, fast traffic and local access. In the neighborhood unit model, which the neighborhood unit within the neighborhood unit, the streets must be discontinuous, making it difficult for cars to pass through the center of the neighborhood, and this passing traffic was intentionally discouraged. The idea is to create a separation between fast vehicles and pedestrian-dominated residential areas. And so in our research, we present an agent-based model that we constructed and programmed that investigates this walkability of the neighborhood in terms of its young people, particularly how children and teenagers attending schools locally move from their homes to school. And the research simulates the pedestrian movement by considering public space, pathways, roads, squares, etc., and estimating the distance to school in terms of time, and also it takes into account other amenities. So the input for the simulation were raster images of the points of interest obtained from OpenStreetMaps, and these maps were coded later, so the locations were easily identified by the simulation software. In this case, the color green is used to highlight the schools in the area. So the plan and the area of interest contains the several public schools, and also some private ones. In total, they were 11, but 2 of them didn't exist at the time, and so this corresponds to private schools and 1 adult formation school, and so they were removed from our simulation. But and also they were not in the 1930s plan. So with this case study delimited, we developed a computer simulation written in NetLogo, and NetLogo is a multi-agent programmable environment that simplifies many of the minor bookkeeping tasks when writing a computer simulation. It has the notion of space, of agents, and scheduling, for example, and it also provides a way to easily create interfaces and obtain statistics from the resulting simulations. So one of its big advantages is also that it supports many kinds of simulations based on agents or networks or cellular automata. So in our study, we wrote a simulation to take use the agent/cellular automata principle, and our model measured the distance traveled by agents from school to their homes or to located at the entry in their public space near their buildings. And so at each step, an agent would walk away from school, going back home, and will lay a marker in each location. And this will characterize the time that it takes a child to go to that particular locations. So we assumed a movement of 1 meter per second for each cell, and each cell corresponds in our representation to 4 square meters. A cell has 2 by 2 meters of size. So we obtained as an output a chronomap that basically depicts the distances of each public space to the closest school in terms of walking time. And In the area of interest, there are 3 types of schools. The first type covers levels 1 to 4, so children up to the age of 9. The second set of schools covers levels 5 to 9, and the third set covers levels 10 to 12. And we simulated all 3 sets and obtained chronomaps for each one of them. And these maps are shown here, and they will give you the time to go to school from every location in the simulation. So here are some results. These are aggregated results of the simulations and are color-coded, so they can be easily understood. For example, in red, we have the locations that are closer than 5 minutes. Then in the next layer, or in orange, we have the sub-10-minute locations, and then the 15-minute locations are in green. And finally, every location that is above 15 minutes of distance is in purple. So from these images, it's clear that there are slightly or striking differences between the 3 levels of schooling, namely for the students of levels 5 to 9, between 10 and 14 years old, where in the southwest and in the northeast of this area, they are further away than 15 minutes that was expected. Also, this difference can be clearly seen when we plot the density of location according to their time distances. So while 80% of the primary schools have traveling distances below 7 minutes, the other 2 cases only achieve 80% by 12 and 14 minutes respectively. So the cumulative density representation clearly shows that students in the middle levels of 5 to 9 are the ones further away from their respective schools. And we also clearly see that 10% of the locations are further away than 17 minutes. So in conclusion, I'd like to point out some final ideas. The construction of models in silico allows us to explore quickly the behavior of large complex scenarios. These computer simulations allow for the exploration of past, present, and future realities. And even at the expense of some accuracy, the models allow the start of conversations with populations and provide thought ideas to explore. As the project in this stage is in its early stages of development, many factors and variables are still missing from the project, and we will be incorporating them during the next iterations of this research. Right now, what we found shows good agreement with modern tendencies in urban planning, like the 15-minute city that aims to return the city to its local communities for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for cycling. And for what we found is that this urban region, this plan of Alvalade neighborhood that is now 8 years old, still holds very well in these new ways of thinking, attesting for the quality of the work that was done in the past.
Okay, so thank you. Well, thank you to me. It was presented by me. We'll have in the program a 15-minute break for discussion of these topics for some questions. As we are running approximately 30 minutes late, I would open the floor to any quick question that anyone might have, or if we don't have questions, we can join them at the end, at the final session. So I'll ask the participants to see if anyone has a quick question or wants to pose some questions now, or if we then go further and try to do all the questions in the round table at the end. So it seems that we don't have really questions right now. I have a couple of questions that I would like to place, but I'll guard them to the end because we are running late. We are, as I said, 30 minutes late. So probably it's best to move on and then do the questions in the final session and group the 7 talks all together, and anyone that wants to talk about and place questions, do it at the end. So the next presentation will start soon. I would ask Dr. Samira Bouquet, if she wants to share from now on and share on the second half, and then we would all participate in the end.
And questions, I prefer to let them in the final round table, because we are late.
Yes.
Manage the time.
Yes.
It's my own.
Okay, so probably it's better than we proceed, and continue the presentations.
Okay.
So do you want to take it from here, Dr. Samira, to take the floor and do the presentations until the end?
Yes.
Okay, I'll mute myself. The next presentation,
Doctor,
yes.
Shall I share the next
Yes,
presentation
please.
now?
Yes, please.
It is in the second part. The presentation.
In the second part, yes. We are going to skip the roundtable because we are running late. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So the next presentation is, let me just open my notes here, from Dr. Maha Abubakar Ibrahim, Dr. Ala Aslan, Dr. Mahazen Mohamed Nasef.
Dear all,
and it's going.
Thank you and my colleagues Mazen Nasef and Dr. Hala Aslan. Our research.
Doctor, is it okay?
Okay, it's okay. Please go on.
Go on. Okay.
Yes, please go on.
Today is about under title Comparative Analysis between Egyptian and Syrian Bimaristans during the Mamluks era. The research objectives are shedding light on the importance of domestic architecture in Islamic societies and the role of their healthcare centers, studying the components of traditional Islamic Bimaristans, the architecture components of course, and understanding the Bimaristans as an architectural product and studying its relationship and formation with Islamic culture. Our methodology is divided into a conceptual background and comparative analysis section. The first section deals with Islamic culture and its influence on the principles of architecture and the principles of architecture in Bimaristans, to stand on a concrete analytical factors that achieve the functional role of Bimaristans and reflects social cultural ones. Concerning the comparative analysis, we are going to monitor the status of Bimaristans in Egypt and Syria, that to select suitable Bimaristans to apply our studies on. And then we will detect our results and put our recommendations. Concerning the conceptual background, Islamic architecture in general has a number of main principles that we can trace along different areas and in any Islamic region or any Islamic community, where most of the Islamic buildings featured by centrality and the sense of verticality, and also the sense of horizontality, as we believe in the existence of the Kaaba at the center of the world. Muslims also pray in a horizontal line or simulated horizontal line towards the Kaaba, and also the sense of verticality where the throne of God. Many other principles like hierarchy and unity and multiplicity are discussed in the paper. Then we turn to the principles of the architectural principles of Bimaristans. After research, we found that Bimaristans, Islamic Bimaristans, are divided into 8 zones. The service zone, where the portals, doors, internal corridors, kitchens, bathrooms, and restrooms, vehicle parkings. This is the services zone. The second zone is the medical zone, and this is the crucial part of the of any Bimaristan, where the outpatient clinics, pharmacies, a place for serving the dead bodies, where ritual washings, administrative zones, and the religious zones. Educational zone, the residential zones, and for workers and students as well, and charity rooms if there is any place for watering or sabil, and the recreational areas. Then we turn to the analytical part, where the comparative analysis, we listed a number of the mentioned or documented beamer stands in Cairo, and we choose the Mansouri beamer stand that was built in 1284. Still exists and work as a hospital nowadays. And as well, we listed the beamer stands of Syria, and we selected the Aragon beamer stand. So we have two beamer stands, Al-Mansouri beamer stands in Cairo, and Aragon beamer stand, which was built 2 centuries before Al-Mansouri beamer stand. Then I'll give you just a clue about the analysis, how the process took its place. For example, we put the elements of the service zone, and we discussed each part, the portals, the doors, how it worked. So here in Mansouri alone, we find that it's a monumental scale door or a portal that is treated in 3 layers. These 3 layers is recessed. Each layer is recessed inside the other to give the user an orientation to go inside this place. Also to give him a sense of human scale, not at that very huge monumental scale. There in the Mansouri beamer stand, there was no walls surrounding the beamer stand or boundaries. They were guarded and saved by the important surrounding buildings, and these surrounding buildings as well works as an isolation from any other activities that may annoy the patients inside the beamer stand. Also, the internal corridors, we discussed how it works and what influence it gives or sense it gives for the patients, how they treated the corridors and foyers, and play with the shade and shadows to treat them spiritually before physically. Also the kitchen zone or kitchen area, and where they put it in a place which is too close to the entrance, the secondary entrance that is made for the schoolers and students in the madrasa. Also, they considered the restrooms, and this area is for the it's between the mosque and the beamer stand, and these 2 restrooms was one is for women and the other is for males, where there is no bath inside the beamer stand. However, there is another structure outside the beamer stand that includes a bath for the to serve the beamer stand. There is no stone clock tower here. However, the minaret that lies beside the dome of the shrine works as a clock, or to give the patients and doctors a clue about the time along the day. And there is no vehicle parking in this beamer stand. This way, we analyzed each zone of the 8 zones in both of the beamer stand, and then we stand on a number of results by comparing the 2 beamer stands, where we found that for the service zones, almost the 2 zones are equal, unless the beamer stand of Aragon missed the restrooms. The study reveals that the beamer stands that were examined the stone clock tower. However, we assume that the large minarets in the mosque provides the same function, and locals are aware of the appropriate times for their diverse needs. The only difference between the two case studies concerning the service room is the absence of restrooms in the Aragon Bimaristan. And despite the bathrooms are very important in the Islamic culture and for the physical service as a Bimaristan. Also, Bimaristan Aragon didn't include any area of ritual washing, and also it missed the administrative, religious, educational, residential, and charity zones. And concerning the recreational areas, both of them include recreational areas where they have open courtyards and water fountains, but both of them missed any open gardens. However, they use the greeneries inside the courtyard. For the cosmological point, from the cosmological point of view, we can notice that the design of both Bimaristans followed the spiritual and cultural aspects of Islamic communities. Both buildings are event-type buildings that achieve unity and multiplicity. Also, they use the courtyard as the core or central point for the internal zones. Eventually, we can claim that both of them can be considered as a model of the Islamic domestic architecture. However, although this study provides a broad overview on the design of domestic architecture in the Islamic world, however, we found that we need to make more studies concerning the demolished Bimaristans to trace the process of developing this building type along the different Islamic periods. Also, studies concerning the existing Bimaristans need to be more precise, as we assume that there are some zones must have been considered in Aragon and Bimaristan, but not documented. And for contemporary architects, who deal with this type of heritage building must take into their account what has been mentioned in this paper regarding the initial principles of design, which have been extrapolated from what has been inherited through different eras, Islamic eras, taking into account the cultural and social aspects when making any renovations for the continued use of this building. Thank you for listening, and we are eager to answer any questions.
Okay, so this was another interesting presentation, and I suggest that we proceed.
You don't have to be the best trader to let
one for the next presentation, and it's entitled "Impact of Urban Heat Island on Formation of Precipitation in the Indian Western Coastal Cities" by Dr. Rashana Patil and Dr. Minal Sarwar. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. So can we have the presentation?
Good morning, everyone. Myself Rachna Patil. I'm PhD scholar at VNIT Nagpur, India, and title of my presentation is Impact of Urban Heat Island on Formation of Precipitation in Indian Western Coastal Cities. I'm guided by Dr. Minal Surar ma'am. So starting with the presentation, firstly talking about need of the topic, the urbanization is increasing rapidly. And in order to accommodate this increasing urbanization, the natural areas are converted to the urban areas and population densities are also increasing. If you look at the population density all over the world, we can see that Asian cities are highly densified. If we look at the spatial distribution of the population density, it can be inferred that how densely India is populated. And as per the forecasting, by 2050, 50% of the people will be living in the urban area, which will add more 900 million people to the urban area. Currently, the land share of the India is 2.8%, but it accommodates 17.5% of the world population. On one hand, it is good that we are able to house such a large population of people, but on the other hand, it has many consequences. One such consequence is urban heat island. As per the research paper, it is inferred that the population density is directly proportional to the urban heat island. And this increase in temperature has a significant association with the number of deaths. Talking about the urban heat island is a phenomena when the city experiences the higher temperature than nearby rural area.
The main reason of this is the Earth loses most of its heat in the form of long-wave radiation, but the urban surfaces absorb the long-wave radiation and re-emit slowly, thus increasing the temperature. Another phenomena which is responsible for keeping temperature low is evapotranspiration, which is less in the urban area due to presence of the impermeable surfaces. Talking about the types of the urban hinterland, there are mainly three types of the urban hinterland. Boundary layer urban hinterland is mainly affected by the mesoscale. Canopy layer urban hinterland is a layer which is formed underneath the line that contains at most the top of every building in the city, and the surface urban hinterland which deals with the surface. In this presentation, I have focused on the surface urban hinterland. Talking about the factors causing urban hinterland, the factors which mainly cause urban hinterland includes geographic location, global climate, local weather, which can't be controlled. But the other factors such as city size in form of urban density, human activity which causes greenhouse gas emission, city form which involve building material can be controlled. Therefore need to be planned accordingly. Talking about the effects of the urban hinterland increases the severity on the extreme hot weather, which increases the temperature, which can lead to the convective rainfall. This convective rainfall can lead to the flash flooding in the urban area, which can expose a lot of population to the extreme, which can to the greater risk. The other effects of the urban hinterland includes increased water consumption and increased energy consumption. Due to all these effects, the urban hinterland should be tackled. Extensive study has been done on the effects of the urban surfaces and microclimate on urban hinterland, but relatively few studies are done on the interrelationship between the urban hinterland population density and precipitation. And in highly densified countries like India, this is matter of concern. So in my study, I have tried to study the interrelationship between the urban hinterland precipitation and population. So related literature review was done, and it was inferred that NDBI and NDBI, which signifies the urban area, has positive correlation with the surface temperature, and NDVI and NDMI, which signifies the vegetated area, has negative correlation with the temperature. Densely populated area with less vegetation has highest canopy UHI hotspot. The temperature systematically decreases from the city center where the population densities are high towards the fringe area. The city center cools at a slower rate than that of the rural area. Then the number of the household is directly proportional to the energy consumption, which is directly proportional to UHI. Talking about the second correlation between UHI and precipitation, the convective rainfall is increased by 25% during nighttime and 50% by daytime. The strong surface heating affects the diurnal pattern of the rainfall. The presence of high anthropogenic heat also affects the evaporation process. The heating tends to accelerate the destabilization, which increases the convective potential. So the indicators for analysis was selected from the literature review. For further analysis, I selected surface temperature for urban hinterland, intensity for precipitation, and population density for population. So talking about the study area, I have selected western coastal cities of the India. The main reason of selecting this city were the coastal area is impacted more by UHI during pre-monsoon and post-monsoon, and particularly the western cities receive more precipitation. Also, talking about the effect of UHI on rainfall, in case of coastal cities, this effect is local, whereas inland cities, this effect is seen on downwind of the city. Also, the period which was selected for the study was summer period and winter period of the year 1991, 2001, 2011, and 2020. So talking about the behavior of the selected cities related to selected parameter, the Surat has highest population density, which was about 19,000 person per square kilometer. The Kannur has lowest population density, which was about 600 person per square kilometer. In summer surface temperature, the Bhavnagar recorded the highest surface temperature, which was about 35 degrees Celsius, and Kannur recorded the lowest, which was about 27 degrees Celsius. In winter surface temperature, the Kochi recorded the highest, which was about 28 degrees Celsius, and Vadodara recorded the lowest, which was about 20 degrees Celsius. In case of precipitation, in winter as well as summer, the Kollam recorded highest, which was about 10 and 9 mm respectively. it can be seen that where the population density was low in case of the Kannur, it recorded the lower summer surface temperature. So as to get more clear idea about this relation, the Spearman rank correlation coefficient was found and hypothesis testing was done. Null hypothesis was considered as no correlation exists between the selected parameter, and alternative hypothesis was considered as correlation do exist. So for the first relation between the surface temperature and population density, it has a positive relation during the summer, and this relation is getting stronger with the period of the time. The null hypothesis was considered for 1991 and the alternate hypothesis was considered for further. This indicates that correlation do exist between population density and surface temperature. Whereas in case of the winter, this relation was negative and the same trend was not followed. For the second correlation between surface temperature and precipitation, in case of summer, it has a negative correlation, whereas in case of the winter, it has the positive correlation. And the relation was getting weaker in case of summer, whereas it is getting stronger for winter. For the third correlation between population density and precipitation, both in case of summer and winter, the relation was negative. So the inferences of this study were for the correlation between the population density and surface temperature was inferred was positive for summer and it was negative for winter. And the relation between when this relation was positive, the relation between the precipitation and surface temperature was negative and vice versa. The reason might be due to the nearness to the ocean, as this causes unequal heating, which causes sea breeze and land breeze. Sea breeze are more dominant during the summer, whereas land breeze are more dominant during the winter. Sea breeze dissipates the cloud formation, as a reason of which the negative correlation can be seen between the precipitation and surface temperature, whereas land breeze facilitates the cloud formation, as a result of which the positive correlation can be seen between the precipitation and surface temperature. This correlation may vary depending upon the physiographic region. Therefore, there is need to study this correlation properly so as to suggest the proper mitigative strategies so that the impact of the unpredicted heat waves and precipitation can be reduced. So with this, I end my presentation. Thank you.
So we are now getting up to the end of our session. We still have one more presentation to see. It's, if not mistaken, the last one, and I think we recovered some of the time that we were lagging behind, but we still didn't recover everything. And if we could prepare the last session, the last talk that is entitled "Impact of Urban Geometric Form Effect on Wind Comfort for Pedestrian Tunnels on High-Rise Buildings" by Dr. Elif Gizem Yetkin, Dr. Murat Aksel, Dr. Mehmet Dikşit, and Dr. Senyix İpek. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. I'm sure that the names are not pronounced like this, but I really have this difficulty.
Yes, no problem. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, Professor
Sorry.
David.
Sorry. So can I ask you please to present the video? Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me. Our presentation will be geometric form effect and wind comfort for pedestrian tunnels of high-rise buildings. Me and our colleagues, Elif Gizem Yetkin, Murat Aksel, Mehmet Dikici will present this presentation. Contents: introduction, methodology, description of the numerical model, validation of numerical model, scenarios, result, discussion, conclusion, references. Efficient land use, population density, economic growth are main focus on humans to build higher buildings. While these features play a pivotal role in development of high-rise building, it is vital to also consider urban planning, sustainability, and social well-being. Creating livable and inclusive urban environments requires balancing the benefit of tall structures with infrastructure, transit, environmental effect, affordability, and community requirements. Planning and design stage must include structural integrity, safety, and emergency preparedness, mechanical, electrical, and water facilities, sustainability, accessibility, and universality, and pedestrian comfort criteria. Pedestrian comfort around building depends on sidewall design, wind protection, shade and sound protection, street furniture, accessibility, and universal design criteria, visual appeal, and human scale, and finally, reduction of traffic conflicts. There are several factors to consider when designing the geometry of passenger tunnel to ensure wind comfort for pedestrians. Some of the key considerations include width. A wider tunnel can reduce width, speed, and turbulence, making it more comfortable for pedestrians to walk through. Height. A taller tunnel can allow for more natural ventilation, which can help to reduce wind speeds. Shape. A curved tunnel can help to reduce wind speeds and turbulence, as the curved shape causes the wind to flow smoothly around the tunnel. Ventilation. Educated ventilation is crucial for maintaining wind comfort in a pedestrian tunnel. This can be achieved using natural ventilation or mechanical ventilation systems. Obstacles. The presence of obstacles within the tunnel, such as columns and other structural elements, can create wind turbulence and make the tunnel less comfortable for pedestrians. Entrances and exits. Proper design of entrances and exits can also play a critical role in maintaining wind comfort. The entrances and exits should be designed to minimize wind turbulences as pedestrians enter and exit the tunnel. Wind brakes. Installing wind brakes at the entrance and exit of the tunnel can help to reduce wind speeds and turbulences as pedestrians enter and exit tunnel. Overall, the geometric form of the passenger tunnel located in high-rise building is crucial for maintaining wind comfort and for pedestrians. It is important to consult engineers and architects to design the best geometry to achieve the desired comfort level and to make sure that design is compliant with wind codes and standards of the location. The computational fluid dynamics like CFD is indispensable in passenger tunnel design for high building. CFD is used for design stage of the high-rise building, especially under wind-based analysis, Yetkin et al. 2022, Yiğit and Şener 2012. It helps ensure efficient ventilation, fire safety, pedestrian comfort, thermal comfort, and energy efficiency while optimizing design and reducing costs. By leveraging CFD simulation, designers can make informed decisions and create safer and more comfortable environments for occupants in high-rise building tunnels. In this study, a calibrated and validated numerical model was used to define the form and the shape factor of the passenger tunnel that promote pedestrian comfort. Various geometry forms like rectangular, square, and circular, and shape factor like various aspect ratio for rectangular, and analyze and resulting with conditions and ventilation within the tunnel. Yes, flow domain boundaries and the mesh quality. When we see this building and we get the boundary condition here and the like the rectangular entrance. Validation of the numerical model, the computational model results, and with tunnel test results conducted by Byron 1975 are prepared and presented in Figure 2 for direct comparative analysis. When we see the Figure 2, our result is compatible with the Byron and wind tunnel test. Scenarios. Once the model was calibrated and validated, various types of pedestrian tunnel were analyzed using CFD. Tunnel R was kept constant. A ratio of the tunnel opening the building was ATB-AB equal to 0.0167. Scenarios and characteristics of the tunnel forms are defined in Table 1. When we see the Table 1, Scenario 1, Scenario 2, and Scenario 3, ATB-AB will be constant 0.0167, and also the building shape and tunnel section is shown Table 1. Result. Each scenario was run for 1000 iterations. Wind-induced velocity magnitudes were calculated in given arrangement are presented for each scenario in Figure 3 and 4, respectively. Dimensionless stream-wise velocities are presented for each line probe, which are named like Figure 3. The undistributed stream-wise velocity value at the elevation where each probe is located has been used for non-dimensionalization. When we see the Figure 3 and velocity calculation for 1.3, 2.3, 3.3, 1.2, 2.2, 3.2, 1.1, 2.1, 3.1, and on Figure B, we can make meshless and calculation. Also, there are three scenarios for Scenario 1, Scenario 2, Scenario 3. Scenario 2 for circular one, and Scenario 1 for rectangular, Scenario 3 for square one. When we see the figure for circular one is better than the others for comfortable pedestrian comfortable. And calculated pressure magnitudes are given Figure 5, and for tunnel longitudinal section and in Figure 6 for 1.5 elevation from the bottom. In rectangular and square type tunnel produce higher amount of suction pressure than the circular one. This causes lower velocity field inside the circular type of the tunnel than the others. And also pressure distribution in Pascal unit, rectangular, circular, and square type pedestrian. We can see the circular one, rounded type one is very smaller than others. Also, the pressure also for rectangular, circular, and square type pedestrian tunnel for for height z equals 1.5. From bottom elevation, we can see the circular one is better than other for concerning for pedestrian comfort. Also the circular one wind distribution is very less than than rectangular and square one shown in figure 7, and velocity vectors also is less than the others. Discussion. One of the key aspects we examined was the impact of the tunnel shape on wind flow patterns and the resulting wind speeds. We observed that tunnels with rounded and curved geometries tended to exhibit smoother and more uniform airflow compared to tunnels with sharp edge and angular configurations. The rounded tunnel effectively reduced the generation of turbulent eddies, resulting in lower wind velocity within the tunnel. This design feature significantly contributed to improve wind comfort for pedestrians. This study focused primarily on wind comfort within pedestrian tunnels of the high-rise buildings. However, there are other factors that can affect pedestrian comfort and safety, such as lighting, acoustics, and thermal conditions, which were beyond the scope of this research. Future studies could incorporate these additional parameters to provide a more comprehensive analysis of the overall pedestrian experience within high-rise building environments. Conclusion. Our study emphasized the significance of considering of geometric form of the pedestrian tunnels in high-rise buildings to enhance wind comfort. Rounded or curved tunnel configurations and larger cross-sectional areas were found to improve wind conditions and create a more pleasant experience for pedestrians. These findings can inform architects, engineers, and urban planners or decision makers in design process of the high-rise buildings, contributing to creation of pedestrian-friendly environments that prioritize comfort and safety. Smooth translation from the outdoor to indoor spaces, along with incorporation of windbreakers or landscaping features, minimize wind turbulences and created a sheltered environment for pedestrians entering or exiting the tunnels. At last, CFD is a useful tool for design stage of the buildings. References. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.
So thank you. And I think that at the end of this session, it's been a long day that we've been going through, and we are ending the day, and we are always grateful for having these excellent presentations in this day. I was seeing the presentations and I came to a conclusion that in all of them, what transpires and ends in this session is that there is a connection between the cultural respect for the past, for the history of the architecture or the sustainable project that in the city that we want to intervene in, the new technologies that we want to adopt to decide what the new city, the future city should be, and we are going through the different disciplines, through simulation, through history, through statistical analysis, through computational fluid dynamics, to get these results. So I would like to congratulate and thank all of the participants, and I would like to open discussion. If anyone, we don't have much time, but if anyone wants to place some questions, please just ask or unmute yourself. I think you can unmute and ask the questions. It will be very interesting to hear your thoughts, or sometimes suggestions, sometimes doubts that you had. And so I will ask you to open the discussion. Okay, if no one has a question, I would start with a simple one to Dr. Cengiz İpek, that of last presentation, if he's still here. Cengiz İpek, if I'm pronouncing correctly. This idea of using CFD to define the shape of the tunnels. So I'm a chemist. I came from chemical engineering on my early background, and I did some CFD. So I think the problem, just to see if I'm understanding this right, about when you said the curved shape of the tunnels is better to lower the velocities, it's basically because you are trying to keep laminar flow, or you are trying to break laminar flow inside the tunnel. I think you're still muted. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you for question. Actually, good question. The main point is the wind is a big problem right now. The climate change is going on, and also the urban buildings also crowded, and the population is going up. So the problem for high-rise building, for pedestrian or the enter or the exit side should be very designed for decision maker or the engineers, architects, and all of them. I mean, but the form of the enters or the exits should be rounded. When the wind also maybe a square or rectangular one should be dimension will be large. I mean, the width and height will be the dimension concern will be the high. I mean, so this is big problem right now is the wind affect the building and the roofs and the entrance and the exit is big problem. But what we have resolved about the entrance or the exit side for pedestrian should be rounded is better than the others.
Another question, if you allow me, would the tunnel be should it be symmetric from the high pressure to the low pressure side? Should it be symmetric, or should it have different dimensions on the high pressure from the lower pressure side of the building?
Yeah, this is another problem. We have to get research on it. The regular or irregular buildings will be affect this factor. I mean, this is all things make concern the next future research. I mean.
Okay, thank you. That was really nice. I think it's very interesting, and I think obviously with the climate change, with the things that we are seeing in the 20th century, 21st century, changing in the climate, winds, etc., and the heat waves that we also heard about today, it's going to be more important the way we made buildings more efficient, more resilient to modes of winds, etc., etc.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a question for Maha Abubakar. I think you're still here, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I would like. I really enjoyed the way you posed your work, and in terms of historical perspective, and in terms of the BIMARI stance. I had a question when you were doing presentation, because you were talking about the functional aspects, but I'd like to ask you: did you explore also the constructive historical aspects? For example, when you compared the Egyptian and the Syrian BIMARI stance, were there differences of materials, of construction techniques that evolved throughout the centuries? Did they diverge? This is something that I'm a little bit curious, and I'd like to know if you explored that path.
We were not comparing from the structural point of view. We were comparing the formal and the design point of view, and how the Islamic culture put its influence on the design of the Maristan, whether in Syria or in Egypt during the Mamluk era, just one era.
Yep.
And eventually we find that there is a common platform in the design between them. This common platform ensures or confirms that both of them follow the same Islamic features according to the Islamic culture. Also, functionally wise, they were working for actually for charity, not something for to get benefit from. And this is also an Islamic culture. Both of them also is influenced by the multicultural that crossed with Syria and Egypt, whether during trading or economic activities or even battles or wars. So the Maristan of Syria was influenced by the Byzantine architecture and the Roman architecture. Also, the Maristans in Egypt were influenced by the Coptic and ancient Egyptian architecture. Both of them have their own identities. Both of them have the same platform of Islamic influence.
Yes. Okay, that was very nice. Thank you. Okay, I was just curious. I'm not an expert, obviously, and I don't know much, but I was kind of thinking that if the different materials or different techniques could also reflect different cultural approaches, and it would be a way of trying to analyze it as a proxy for other things. Thank you once again. Thank you for your participation. I would like also to have another question to Rachana Patil. Is she still here? She's still.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
I'm extremely sorry for joining late. Actually, I didn't got idea about time zone.
Yes, we are.
I got a little confused.
No problem. We are also with the problem because we didn't start on time. We had an issue. The session started a little bit late, so there's no problem. In your work, when you talk about these heat waves that impact the urban environments, and they are very dangerous. We are having the same discussion right now here in Lisbon, in Portugal, because of the global warming, and this is happening in cities. And there has been strategies, for example, for adding green spaces, increase the greening areas, planting more trees so we can lower temperatures, etc. From your work, you are doing a lot of correlations, you are doing a lot of analysis, and obviously your system is a weather urban system that interacts in a complex system with feedback loops, negative feedbacks, positive feedbacks, and it's one of those systems that it's very difficult to model. But have you ever considered trying to simulate, create models, not just doing the correlation finding, but also simulating? Because what I found from experience, and my field of work is complex systems, urban environments, is simulation at least allows, it's very useful to do for policy making, to explain to policymakers all the possible features that they can explore. Did you consider this? Are you going in that direction, or?
Yes, so like simulation is it is there, but it is in later stage in policy. Currently, I'm doing like literature reviews. Currently, I'm doing, and because of that, I'm trying to study the current situation. And depending upon that, I will do the simulations, and then I will try to propose the suitable policy for a particular area. So currently, I'm trying to study the current situation.
Yep.
So because of that,
yes, you are characterizing. Yes, it is very interesting. I think the future, it's a personal opinion, but the next 10 to 20 years, with most population moving to cities from rural areas, and we've seen this all across the world. It's going to be more and more important to understand what happens to this interaction of buildings, the built environment, the weather environment around it, that because it's going to affect health issues, transportation, etc., the water supplies, etc. I think Dr. Maha Abu Bakr was trying to join the conversation. I saw her hand.
No, I was clapping for the Professor Shana. His contribution.
Okay, thank you. So, anyone has any other questions? I also like to ask a question to Samira, to my co-chair, and because her work is also very interesting, at least from my perspective, I really found it very interesting, and it had to do again with the idea that we've been discussing, the ventilation simulation. We are all worried about how the sustainable cities, the urban environments will evolve. In your case, you were, Dr. Samir, you were studying the shapes of the blocks of the buildings. One thing that I have some experience on the energetic efficiency of buildings, but on the internal shape of an apartment, of a house, not on the block. We've done some work on the internal representation and the efficiency of the apartments, and we obviously there's things like the shading, the glassing that you have in the facade that will affect the efficiency of the buildings. Besides the shape, what I want to think here and ask you is, besides the shape of the block, other features of the built environment, hills, trees, a railway nearby, would affect this ventilation process. Did you try to explore externalities that could impact the behavior of your system, not just the shape?
In our research, we have this research is a part of my thesis. We have considered the environment and the orientation, direction of wind, and we haven't considered trees or vegetation or others shading. So just the form of buildings in how to say.
Don't worry, no problem.
So shape of blocks have an impact of ventilation in urban spaces. So there is a relation between shape of buildings and form of urban space.
Mm-hmm.
So if we consider trees, it will be a correction of wind direction. So we have considered only form of buildings, high, width, and tall. Mm-hmm. So this is the most important critical parameter on wind.
And did you consider these shapes of these buildings in different locations? For example, the same shape in Cairo is going to be different from that same shape in London, right?
Yes. There is a difference between context, between climates who have an impact on wind movements. Mm-hmm. So here is a special context, donc humid context, Mediterranean context, yes, with special parameter. Yep.
Yes. So it was very interesting. I think so this is, you said that this is part of your PhD. I think it has been finished. It's done, right? Or still ongoing?
Yes.
It's okay. So it's very interesting. I think as we said in this session, we've seen the different approaches, different for I think overall assessing the quality of life in urban contexts, and it's very important to understand how we live our cities, how the cities are used, and in the end, it's a bit too topic, but we all want a certain model of future cities that we idealize. For that, we are using all the tools that we can. We are doing simulation. We are looking at humidity and ventilation. We are looking at heat waves. We understand that our cities are not static, that they change with time, and they need they need to be addressed in the evolution of this giant organism that obviously has a time scale that is very different from the human scale, but it has to grow into something that is better than what it was in the past. And we have today the technologies and the tools and the science and the knowledge to do it better, with respect to our cultural heritage, with respect to the traditions. But I think we can do better. I'm not going to prolong this session anymore. I think we are all tired from an exhausting day. It's been a long day, and I would like to thank you all again. If someone has a final question, I'll gladly give you the floor. But from my side, I think it's very important. I would like to thank you all the participants of this session that waited a little bit longer. It was very interesting, and I think it's possible that in future, some of you will contact each other or me if you want to ask any question about our work. It's going to be a pleasure to answer. And I would like to see you tomorrow. Probably we'll see you tomorrow in the second day of this conference. So I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening.